it's important to historicize this. I mean, I come back to this argument from Walter Rodney. It is almost disingenuous to suggest that the fact that there is good infrastructure and roads and social services in Western Europe and North America is the product of their intelligence and hard work. I mean, of course, they were intelligent and hardworking people, but really, we have to understand the development of these countries as the product of the exploitation of the global South, not just in Africa. But I think this is really important.
Who built their railways?
Who built the railways? The thing that everyone in the West thinks that World War II was won by the Americans. Firstly, that's not true. I mean, it was basically Russia and China that ultimately defeated fascism. But let's ignore that part. The fact that the uranium that was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to build the atom bomb that was dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which destroyed so many lives, was taken out of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. That's where that uranium comes from. To go and not just plunder the African continent, to take that and use it to go and dominate another part of the world is an anecdote of the kind of development that we are talking about. So the first point is that we have to be historical about this. But the second point also is that we have to be a little more theoretical about understanding what the reality at the moment is. And I'll use the example, you mentioned it in passing, that we should be grateful that we can send our young people to go and study in these countries. Kids are going to the global north to go to universities in Oxford and Harvard and whatever. Any country's education system is not something that exists in a bubble. You create an education system for the kind of society that you are trying to create. In 1976, in the country that I'm from, in South Africa, young students from from schools went onto a strike. And they went and they kind of created, it was a kind of a youth uprising. Why was there an uprising? Because the apartheid economy was structured in such a way that black African children were being educated to push wheelbarrows and work with spades. Our currency is the rand. For every rand that was spent on a white child, 20 cents was spent on a black child. Because the kind of, it was called Bantu education, different education system for the working class they were trying to create. What's the point I'm trying to make? The point is that an education system is there to create the kinds of people that you need in your country, in your society, in the future. It's about constructing your future. And unfortunately, neocolonialism has condemned many parts of the African continent to not develop in the future, which means that we don't have education. Where are the universities where you can go and get a PhD in engineering in the African continent? The copper belt might have the highest proportion of copper in the world, and it has the lowest proportion of engineers, I'm sure. There's a part in South Africa, 96% of the world's platinum reserves are in this little platinum belt in South Africa. But above there are people living, they don't have flushing toilets, and their children can't go to school. What kind of contradiction is this? It's because you're creating the conditions where you want Africa to forever be the feeding trough of the imperialist countries. And this, I think, is the thing we have to understand a bit better. And it's not, I used education as an example, but it applies at all levels. We have to have the correct assessment of what's wrong here. Is corruption because the darker your skin is, the more likely it is that you are going to steal money? Or is it how the entire system is set up? I, for one, refuse to believe that the color of your skin determines the degree to which you are going to be corrupt or not. I do not believe that people are so ontologically different, but I do think that there is a kind of structure that has been imposed onto the African continent, which the African people, the working people of the world, the global South has never benefited from truly. And that is, I think, what we need to fight against and understand and identify as the true enemy, rather than the kind of purportedly lazy Africans, which is what it seems to be your American friends are telling us, viewers.
Before we end, there's one question I'd like to kind of put a little meat on. What is different between the way the West and China have come into Africa? And how do we view that on the African continent? I think what is, especially for I work in the international department of our party. So I've had to understand what are the foreign policies and how do different countries relate with the African continent? On what basis are we going to cooperate? And one thing that I've been very proud of is the Chinese model on international policy and foreign policy. The 5 principles of mutual cooperation. There's respect in the way that you deal with the Chinese. They don't look down on you as an African country and want to come and dominate. They don't want to interfere in your internal affairs. So they allow you and they want you to be independent in your internal affairs. They're not coming to dictate what you should do in your country. Also, mutual benefit. They haven't just come there to plunder, to take from you, but they also want you to be able to benefit from your cooperation and exchange. So the way China comes is with a lot of respect. And I think this is one thing that I hope the Chinese and the international viewers that you have start to understand much more. Because I think also the Chinese are so humble that they don't go out there and preach their value system as much. That look, we actually go there in the best interest of both parties. But if you look at the Western and the imperialist countries, they come with their own interests. In 2002, end of last year, there was a summit in the US on Africa, and they invited African leaders. They selected which African leaders should go for this summit. They dictated the agenda of the summit, and they dictated that there'll be another summit in 2023. And Zambia was one of the co-hosts of this summit. Just I think that was about a month ago now. The vice president of the US came to Zambia, landed at a Chinese-built airport in Zambia. And this was out of solidarity that airport was built for Zambia. Moved on a Chinese-built road in Zambia. The venue of this summit was actually a gift to Zambia by the Chinese government. And that was where this Summit for Democracy was held, in Zambia.
To tell
Nobody
African
talks
people
about
don't
this.
work with China. Right.
And the key agenda of this summit was to curb Africa's cooperation with China in a Chinese gift to the African continent. One of our major referral hospitals in Zambia, which is called Levy Mwanawasa Teaching Hospital, was a gift to the Zambian people by China. But even in Zambia, very few people know that this hospital was a gift. Zambia did not pay $1 for that hospital. If you went and saw the little placard that says gift from the Chinese people, it's the size of an A4 sheet of paper. And this is a massive hospital that deals with over 2,600 referral cases a month. But China is so humble in the way they deal with us on the African continent. If this was an American gift, it would be reported in media from the US to Latin America to Europe to Australia. The whole world would know about this gift to the African continent. If you just talk about debt and finance, the way they deal with Africa, Africa will borrow, Zambia, Ghana, they borrow from the IMF. The IMF will come and dictate how you should use this money that they charge high interest rates on. They tell you what areas, what sectors you can hire in, what sectors you can't hire in. They tell you what laws you should implement, how your judiciary should operate, because they have lent you money. China doesn't do that. China will even waive some interest. They'll waive some of the loans that you owe them. And they offer their loans at very low interest rates. So their cooperation is very different. And it's important that people start to understand this, because there's this facade and this misinformation that is funded by the West themselves, that China has also come to plunder Africa. But no, the Africans are waking up today and saying this is not true. We're seeing the difference. In Zambia, I must say, and I wanted to say it, I couldn't leave this platform without saying it. People rejected the visit of Kamala Harris, the vice president of the US. She was not welcome in Zambia. The police had to barricade the roads that were leading to the venue of this summit because the members of parliament, the opposition members of parliament, decided that they are going to protest on behalf of the Zambian people to reflect the sentiments of the Zambian people. We have woken up in Africa. We know that the West is not our friend. The West is there to plunder. China comes for friendship. China comes for cooperation. And I'm saying this because I see what China has done. Our largest stadium in Zambia, which is a 60,000-seater capacity, was built as a gift from China. Zambia never paid $1. But China doesn't even sing about it, not even in Zambia. So the world should know that it's different. And even Africa is looking for different friends now. We're not looking for exploiters. We're done with exploitation. We're looking for friends. We're looking for mutual respect because we're human beings. And China understands that we are human beings in Africa. We shouldn't be grateful that you come back and lend us our money under the IMF. We reject that. We have woken up. There's a different sun rising in Africa now. And that different sun that is rising in Africa will bring change in Africa. And as I said, it makes me honored to be alive in such a time as this because a different sun is rising and a common prosperity will be possible in Africa.
Thanks for watching the video and please consider liking, sharing, commenting and subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much.